Welcome back to my channel. In the last video, we talked about my network in my home, and we briefly talked about my NAS. This video, we're going to do a little bit more of a deep dive into the NAS. So when I first purchased my NAS, I didn't just want to use it just for basic storage, what most NASs are made for. They're just a low-powered CPU with multiple drive bays inside. This NAS is a little bit more advanced and can do more things, and that's why I decided to choose it. It's a QNAP NAS. It's a TVS H464, which means it has a more powerful CPU inside. And the most important thing is that I want to have PCI slots. I'll get the NAS out.
Yeah.
Okay. This is shutting down. I can't remember. There we go. Okay, shut down. Okay, we'll shut down soon. Oh, you can do all fans, the bottom fans for suction. So here's the NAS taken off its shelf. Just going to show you some of the ports on the back, which are quite interesting. Well, mostly for cooling. So for cooling, we got our stock CPU cooler, which from what I've read is one of the problems with this NAS. It can overheat because it's got a 12th gen i5 processor and it wasn't cooled that well. So I bolted on this sucker, which kind of reminds me of like a 60s supercharger onto a car. So I basically have a splitter, a fan splitter from the CPU fan, which splits it and runs to this one. And this is directly over the block of aluminum that cools the CPU to give it additional cooling. So when this one kicks on and whatever speed it runs at, this fan kicks on and runs at the same speed to give it additional cooling. And then from stock, it also has two coolers for the drive bays. And this is a PSU to cool the power supply off. Those are all stock. I left them as is. So from the factory, how QNAP ships it out is they give you two 2.5 gigabit ports, which you can trunk them to get 5 gigabit speeds. But really in this day and age, most people want their NASs hooked up at 10 gig. So one of the reasons I bought this NAS, it has two PCI expansion slots and they're Gen 4 speeds. So they're actually quite quick. Newest stuff is Gen 5, but at the time this NAS came out, Gen 4 was the fastest speed. So one's a 16 slot and one's an 8 slot. So in the 8 slot, I got a 10 gigabit card, which is right here. So that's mainly how the NAS is connected. And I also have a GPU in there, which we'll talk about shortly. So the main purposes of why I even have a NAS is obviously for data storage. So I keep all my personal files on there. I do time machine backups for all of my different Mac computers inside the house. It also runs a Plex media server, which is really good for this. It's super snappy. You can run like 34K videos at once without having any issues, without even needing to use the GPU as such a powerful processor. I also run it for Pi-hole, which is an ad blocking service. So that runs on the network locally. And then I also have Home Assistant set up on this. And one of the things is I use the 10 gigabit port, which is the main uplink port for transferring files and for Plex. And that runs on my main network. But because all my smart devices live on a different VLAN network, it's an IoT network, I needed something to directly connect my Home Assistant instance to that network. So that's where these extra two ports came in handy. One of them is dedicated just for a virtual machine, which runs Home Assistant, and that links up to my smart home. So it's on its own separate VLAN versus everything else runs on my local network, which is on the 10 gigabit port. Okay, let's first talk about how I have the NAS set up. So initially, when I first watched the video, reviewing it, I watched the video from NAS Compares, and he recommended making your first storage pull from the standard drives in the front. And these are standard 20 terabyte drives up front, and they might be 24. And I had the first pull pulled from those ones, which means the operating system of the first pull goes onto those drives. So that's the wrong way to set it up. You always want to populate your drives first, which is the NVMe storage, which is the quickest form of storage. There's NVMe storage, SSD, which is solid state storage, and then standard optical drive storage. Each one gets more expensive for memory size, but they also get faster. So I populated these with two 1 terabyte NVMe storage drives, and they're running in a RAID 1 format, which just means the redundancy. So if one goes down, you can replace one and put a new one in, and you won't lose your operating system and all your settings. Then my second pull I created was with these 24 terabyte drives, and they're running in a RAID 5 format. So it means there's, I think it's 2 drives of redundancy. Sorry, I think it's actually just 1 drive of redundancy. So if one drive goes down, then you can swap out that drive before another one fails, and it can rebuild the RAID format, and you won't actually lose any data. That was enough redundancy for me. And then afterwards, I added this, another SSD for cache. So caching just means the most commonly used files that you're reading and writing from get stored onto that drive. So if you access them again, they don't have to be pulled off the slower drive. They're able to be accessed directly from that drive more quickly. And from what I understand, the operating system decides on what are the most frequent drives and moves them based off usage. The other upgrade I got when I first bought the drive is it came with 32 gigs of RAM, and it upgraded to 64, which is quite an easy upgrade. You just have these 2 slots right here. You pop out the chips and you buy new ones and put them in. I did this quite a long time ago when RAM was a lot cheaper. So now it's quite an expensive upgrade to make, but back at that time period, it was quite cost effective. So one of the main reasons I bought this NAS, it came with PCI slots. And those were super important to me because I wanted additional expansion. As I first stated before, it only came with 2 2.5 gigabit ports, and I knew I wanted to have 10 gig networking with my NAS. So the first PCI slot, the bottom one, which is Gen 4 times 8 slot, I was able to buy this TP-Link 10 gigabit network card and add it in to cover the 10 gig networking side of things. The next thing I wanted to do is I wanted to have a GPU. Initially, when I first got the GPU, I wanted it for transcoding for Plex, so I could have more simultaneous streams running at once, and it would offload onto the GPU instead of using the onboard GPU on the CPU chip. So the first one I had was a Quantos P2000 GPU, which I think it has only 4 or 8 gigabytes of VRAM, which was plenty good for what I wanted to do at the time period. Lola! No! Ow! Hey! Later on, I decided I wanted a more powerful GPU. I wanted to get into some local LLM models running on my NAS. And I watched a video that showed a little bit more high performance NAS, putting in an Ada generation GPU into there and running chat over RTX, which is the simple way to get LLM models running. And I'm new to it, so I wanted something more straightforward. So after doing a lot of research, I knew that I couldn't use my P200 GPU or P2000 GPU, and I wanted to get something to work. Now, because of the limited space inside this NAS, it does have a 16 slot at ×4 speeds, but it was difficult to find a GPU that will fit. I initially wanted an Ada generation GPU, but it was too long. It didn't physically fit inside this slot. So I found was a little known GPU. It's called an Ada generation SFF. It's a small form factor GPU, which is very small. But one of the downsides is it was a 2-slot GPU. So it didn't physically fit inside the NAS if I wanted to keep the 10 gigabit card. So after doing further research, I found a company called Nerdware. And Nerdware, what they do is you end up taking your SFF GPU that's 2 slots, you end up taking off the case and the fan, and it gives you this milled aluminum piece or milled copper piece to bolt the actual GPU die onto, and then it can fit inside it. Then it's a single slot GPU. And as far as I understand, it's the most powerful small form factor single slot GPU that you can currently buy. Correct me in the comments below if there's something more powerful, but as far as I know, this is the most powerful one. The only things I watched about this modification is it ran a little bit hot. So cooling capacity was a bit of an issue. So I waited for the updated Nerdware die to come out with a more powerful fan, and they did some modifications to the copper core. But I also added an additional fan on it. So I just basically took the stock fan, put a splitter on there, and added my own fan that sits directly below the die of the GPU to give additional cooling to it. Now, I haven't been able to get the local LLM to work yet because QNAP doesn't officially support the SFF Ada generation GPU. So basically I have to get GPU pass-through to work. And the GPU pass-through does not currently work. So I'm kind of stuck at that step currently. I'm able to get the virtual machine to run and recognize the GPU. But when I try to set up the GPU pass-through, meaning that Lola. No.
She's so naughty today.
I've been really close. I've got the virtual machine to run, recognize the GPU, but when I try to give the GPU pass-through, it won't link to it. And I just haven't been able to get past that step yet. So then the next step will be running chat with RTX, and I can start experimenting with LLMs, but I'm kind of stuck on that step. I'm not an expert on software. I'm much better with hardware. So if anyone has any other future advice of how to get it running, I would appreciate that. Please put in the comments below. I've had this NAS now for about 5 years, and I've been slowly upgrading over time. I've been really happy with the NAS. It does, for a beginner like me who was first getting into NAS, I really like it. There are some other options that are a little bit more customizable, but this one gives you the good balance between customizability and easy to use software. There is Synology, which is a really popular brand, but they don't have very much customizability, and their hardware is inferior to QNAP. This one is quite a beast of a NAS, still super quick for modern NAS use, and I have no reason to upgrade. The only thing I wish was better software support. I've sent multiple emails to QNAP asking them to support this generation of GPU, and they say they're working on it and they're going to try to put it in there, but it takes a long time. Some of the more independent NAS companies, that you can get that kind of update or community stuff a lot quicker and update it into it, because I really want to get this GPU pass-through working so I can use it, a local LLM for RAG, which is random augmented generation. So not having my personal files opened up to ChatGPT or something. I want a local model running on there, and I can go search through my files using AI and not expose it up to the internet. So that's the ultimate goal with this. And I don't feel the hardware is at all limited. It's just the software that's giving a bit of a limitation. If you like this type of content, please subscribe. This channel is going to be dedicated towards technology, but technology in multiple different things. I'm into construction, home building, as well as technology. So I'm trying to integrate those two things together. Future video coming out is going to be on a smart couch. What the hell is a smart couch? You're going to find out because I made one.